Welcome to the weekend edition of The Bullet for Saturday, September 1st, 2023. Your commentators this weekend are Dan Was, author of the Good Gun, Bad Guy series of books and the Loaded Mic radio program, Rob Morse of the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast and the Slow Facts blog, and Brooke Cheney of A Great Start Shooting School. Stories covered this weekend include permitless carry taking effect in Nebraska, D.C. coughing up money in a Second Amendment lawsuit, Tennessee's special legislative session ends without new gun control laws, and the Biden administration trying to make sure that everyone who sells a gun must have an FFL. Now, here's the host of the Weekend Bullet, Paul Lathrop.
And I did not get that programmed entirely correctly because this should have come up as soon as the sound ended. My name is Paul Lathrop, everybody. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me this weekend, up first, Dan Was. Dan is the author of the Good Gun, Bad Guy series. Now you know why I use AI to do my reading. Dan is the author of the Good Gun, Bad Guy series of books, and he's also the host of the Loaded Mic radio program. Up next, Rob Morse. Rob, an old cohort of mine, both in age and in length of friendship. Rob and I have been together for quite a while. He's part of the Polite Society podcast team. He also has his own Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast that is in the top 0.0001% of all global podcasts. And joining me, the third person for the crew tonight, is Brooke Cheney of A Great Start Shooting School. It's also a great continuing shooting school. Don't just go see Brooke if you need to learn to shoot. She can help even experienced people get better. Thank you, everybody, for coming along today.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
All right, let's go ahead, and I want to remind everybody as we get started, if you want to comment on anything we're talking about, go to either the Facebook or YouTube channels for Polite Society and get your comment in on those. If you're anywhere else, go ahead and try commenting. Sometimes I get them, sometimes they're delayed. But if you got to get a comment in, you've got to get it in right now. Head over to the Polite Society podcast channels. So, we're going to do a little bit of TV magic here real quick. And if you're paying really, really close attention to your screen, you'll notice something changed. And, all right, guys, let's go ahead and we're going to get started. And the big news, well, the biggest news today is there's a story out of Nebraska, and here we go with that one. Why is that not popping? Okay, all else fails. You come over here.
Click something else.
And
Reboot.
you
Removes the requirement that gun owners who want to conceal carry and
just a minute.
carry takes effect in Nebraska. Permitless concealed carry takes effect in Nebraska. After passing the legislature in the spring, the bill State Senator Tom Brewer has long fought for will take effect on Saturday. The new law removes the requirement that gun owners who want to conceal carry in Nebraska get a permit. 2 certified concealed handgun permit instructors, 3 News, now reached on Thursday, support the law, but urge gun owners to still seek training that was required by the permit process. Gun owner and real estate agent Kurt Jeschwiner is one of those instructors. I don't believe it's a state's job or my job to tell people what they should or shouldn't do as long as they don't harm other people, he said. It's a constitutional right. But I think a responsible person who's going to carry a firearm should have some sort of training before they go out in the street with the firearm. He says he's telling students who say they don't need to renew their permit that they should anyway. It proves that you've taken the course. You've gotten some basic instruction, he said. You don't have to necessarily take the state one, although it's the most comprehensive that I'm aware of. Beyond responsible gun ownership, he says there's another reason some Nebraska gun owners may choose to get a permit. Other states that require permits will likely recognize Nebraska's permit, which will still be offered from the state.
Okay, this trainer is a butter. I'm for the Second Amendment, but Yeah. Dan, I'm going to start with you, man. Good news, but boy, they could have found a better trainer than this guy to talk.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess when I look at this, this is a tough situation because I mean, well, first of all, let me ask this: is this the 27th state now? Are we up to 27 constitutional carry?
Yes, 26 or 27. I believe we are at. I believe you're right. I believe it's 27.
Okay. My opinion is, first of all, firearm training should be handed down from parent to child, and I believe it's a family thing, and I believe that I think we all like training, and we all take as much training as we possibly can because we want to be proficient with our firearm and we want to be able to handle them safely. The problem comes in when government mandates that sort of thing. I think that's what you're referring to, Paul, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah.
training is obviously very good. We want training, but when government mandates it, that's when there's a problem. Because when government mandates training, or government, like in New York State, where I live, the government has a tight grasp on the actual courses and the course study, and it's a mandated training for our concealed carry permit. I don't agree with that. When did it become okay for the government to regulate, not only make you get a government issued permission slip, but then mandate that you take training, and then mandate that you take training that they create, because all of this stuff leads to the government's ability to take it away. If they can give it, they can take it away. They've taken a right and turned it into a privilege. That's my opinion. I hope I answered what you were going for.
Sure. Let me get a comment in here first. Here, this is Jerry Stiles off Facebook. Love the shirt, Rob. So that means I have to throw to Rob next. Rob, the most comprehensive training is from the state, dude. Both you and I know better.
Well, here's the great news. Imagine you're a single mom. You're trying to make ends meet. You want to defend your family, but you've got $1,000 allocated to take training, get a gun, and pay the state's taxes. Because that's what it is. The state's imposing a tax by licensing. Okay, now that the state's tax went away, that means you have more money to get a better gun, better ammo, and take more training. And that's what we've seen from coast to coast. You tax something to get less of it. Removing the permit process is like taking a tax away. We see people take more training.
All right, and bro, let me come over here real quick.
And thanks for the shirt, by the way. It is in honor of Jimmy Buffett.
Yes. By the way, yeah, absolutely, a legend.
If you don't know, I'll let Paul tell you.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett passed this morning, and if I'm the bearer of bad news, I'm sorry. And then let's get another comment in here real quick. CNT Coop says, a great crew for the show. Brooke, we need to get your opinion on this one, Brooke. State training, that's not, you ask me, I don't care what state it is. It's not the most comprehensive training. It's what the state wants you to know about the state laws.
Yeah, I mean, every state has a unique, all of us who need permits have different training regs, right? In New York, I think it goes, I mean, I don't know, I don't live there, but it goes by county. Massachusetts, the garbage they're trying to pass over there, oof, it's really, really bad. Here in Connecticut, at least they say NRA basic pistol or the equivalent. So it is still state mandated, but they're not the one creating it. In Massachusetts, that's exactly what they're trying to do, is create something that is only by the state. Training is always good. My husband and I were having this conversation actually, where I am totally of the person that believes if you're going to use a gun to save your life, you kind of really do need to do some training. My husband's the guy that's like, nope, get a gun. If you need it, you can try to use it. And I'm just more of the yes, please get training, but state mandated training, not really, because here's my thing. I'm a competitive shooter. I do competitions, and I got into shooting because I'm that mom that just wanted to learn how to pick up the gun in my house and do it safely. Would the state have taught that to me? I don't know. So, I don't know. I like Rob's point of the less you tax something, the more of it the average person can actually get.
Absolutely. Let me get a couple more. Warsaw Patriot has a good one here. The Second Amendment needs to be recognized throughout our whole union, not a political football or monopoly. I like that. And going back to the government ruining everything, put the word government in front of anything and you know it's not going to be good.
Well, okay, wait a minute. The great news is we have hundreds of thousands of people, like the people gathered here. We're all instructors, and we struggle to find out what the best methods are. What do my students need? Oh, you can't do this? Let's try that. So to imagine that 12 guys sitting in a legislative committee know what's absurd. We're struggling for it, and we're much closer to the problem.
Yeah.
And there is no one size fits all. And that's honestly what legislators are often looking for. They're like, what is the solution to this problem that I can say that I created? And that's what they're going for. And Dan, where do you live? I mean, like upstate, lower state?
I live in upstate New York, Saratoga Springs, just north of Albany.
I used to go there every August.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're just wrapping up our track season right now. Hopefully all the tourists are going to get the hell out of here soon.
I used to be one of those. Come on now.
Now, there are two types. There are two types of track. One I participated in as a kid where you use your feet and you run around a loop. And there's another kind of track which I participated as a little bit older when you use something with a motor to help prepare you around much quicker. Which track season are we referring to?
Horse racing.
We're talking about the horse track, the horse race track. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to be much richer than I am to go to those. Yes.
It's a pretty wealthy. City. I like to go out for dinner, but during track season, it's awful. We can't even get
an hour towards home before we try to have dinner after track. Anyway, that has nothing to do with national gun rights and stuff, so I'm sorry, I digress.
Well, you know what? You brought up a thought, so let me just add something real quick. You know, with the New York State required training, there's a lot of there's like a whole day of just legal stuff. I don't know if it's important. I kind of have a feeling that they put that legal stuff in there, the legislative stuff, to remind gun owners just how restricted we really are. Because in New York, there's a lot of restrictions on the way we can defend ourselves with respect to things like equal force, duty to retreat, and they pump that stuff home. They drive it home in that course, and the state of New York mandates that stuff is in your pistol class training. I don't think it belongs there. Well, I don't think they should have anything to do with it, but yeah, they stick that in there.
And that's what Connecticut's about to do, is we're going to be mandated to make sure that we teach about the safe storage laws and a bunch of other stuff. But they don't know yet what we're really supposed to teach, but they know we're supposed to teach more, but they're not going to tell us what we're going to teach because they don't know what we should teach. So that is also one of the challenges of working with the government and mandates, is that you just don't know. And the answer to your earlier question, it is number 26 for constitutional carry or permanent.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, I thought we already hit 26 with, what was the last one? What was it, Florida?
Florida was the one before Nebraska, yeah.
I thought Florida was 26. I could be wrong.
Me too.
I believe Nebraska is number 27. I will.
When I went to Wikipedia and counted, I got 27.
There we go.
Okay.
I was pretty excited when we got to 26, because when we got
Right.
to 26, that was the tipping point.
Well, and I'm looking forward to
28,
when.
29?
Well, yes, I'm looking forward to 50 and 51, or 52 if you count Obama's states. But no, seriously, I'm looking to the point where 51% of the population does not need a concealed carry permit. So
Yeah, well, we won't get into that. I won't get into that because I'll go down the numbers. It will not be pretty.
all right, let me. This one I don't get the whole comment, but I'm going to put this up because I like the sentiment. I think everyone should at least take a basic safety class of some kind, but in no way should it be mandatory. If they take the right class, they will more than likely catch what they need to. Yeah.
Oh, see, I was thinking like, yeah. To me, I always tell people guns are like potato chips. You can't have just one.
I can't even have just one variety. I've got handguns, I've got shotguns, I've got rifles. I don't have my A-10 yet, so I don't have any airplanes that are armed yet. But, you know, and one last one, we're going to move on to our next story. I always say it, how will the government know how I store my guns? Will they be allowed to come in my home and check how I store my guns? That's a great
does
point.
Want to answer that question? Because I know.
Go for it, Brooke.
So here's the thing. Here in Connecticut, we have a safe storage law that passed in 2019 called Ethan's Law. And it was all guns must be locked up if there's the opportunity of a minor to be there. And apparently it was expanded because there was this woman who had an apartment and she had a break-in in her apartment. And she called the cops. The cops showed up. She had an unloaded, unlocked gun in her bedside table, and she got a felony for that. So they will find out because something else happened that then helps create them to become a felony because of the Safe Storage Act. Or at least that's what happens here in Connecticut.
And he also says it's all add-on charges. Yeah, it's something bad happens, and they just find all kinds of people and things to prosecute about.
And it's very much, if you call an ambulance, cops come with the ambulance, generally, if you're calling 911. And so you're cleaning your gun, you have a heart attack, your wife calls the ambulance. Next thing you know, here in Connecticut, you're a felon because they walked in and there's guns on the table that are not locked up. So unfortunately, that's how those laws get implemented. They're not preventative. They are 1,000% punitive.
Well, the old saying goes, welcome to Illinois, you're under arrest. And this is, you know. Let's go ahead and get to our next story here. This one, good news out of the District of Columbia. Let's get to this one.
D.C. agrees to pay millions to gun owners for violating their Second Amendment rights. The District of Columbia has settled a class action lawsuit filed by 6 gun owners who were arrested in our nation's capital for violating gun control laws that have since been struck down by the courts, agreeing to pay millions of dollars to the plaintiffs and their attorneys for infringing on their Second Amendment rights. The settlement received preliminary approval from a federal judge on Wednesday, with the district agreeing to fork over a total of $5.1 million. Each of the 6 named plaintiffs will receive $50,000 under the terms of the agreement, with a larger class of affected gun owners divvying up several $million between them.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. That $50,000 a pop. These 6 are people that were arrested and did spend time in jail. I think I might have fought for a little more than $50,000. I'm not an attorney. I did not play one on TV, but yeah.
I will admit, I read that and I'm just like, "Where's Alex? He needs to explain how this works exactly because that didn't seem right at all."
Well,
let's expand those numbers a little bit. It was $1.9 million for the lawyers, $50,000 for each of the named plaintiffs, and only $1,000 each for the 3,000 other plaintiffs that were similarly prosecuted, that says this will not be the last class action lawsuit that DC faces.
The way to make this be the last class action is if the commissioners who approved this law and the police commissioner who oversaw the prosecution of this law had to pay that $5.1 million out of their pockets.
Maybe.
Let's go ahead and
no, because it's one of those things like here in Connecticut, we have the worst laws for our police department. Our police are personally liable when they are on the job. So what you're saying is that our judges and our prosecutors also should be personally liable for everything, and it's just like it won't end well.
Judges, prosecutors, and most importantly, legislators, or the city version, the city commissioners, whatever. Political office holders need to be accountable for the laws they pass. Let's go ahead and continue on with the story. We got more to it.
U.S. District Judge Royce C. Lamberth gave preliminary approval to the settlement agreement on Monday following years of litigation. Lamberth had previously ruled in September 2021 that D.C. arrested, jailed, prosecuted, and seized guns from 6 people based on an unconstitutional set of laws and violated their Second Amendment rights. The laws, a ban on carrying handguns outside the home and others that effectively ban non-residents from carrying guns at all in D.C., have since been struck down in federal court. They were part of a gun control regime that completely banned carrying handguns in public, Lamberth wrote in the 2021 ruling. Those arrested include the lead plaintiff, Maggie Smith, a nurse from North Carolina who was pulled over by D.C. police for a routine traffic stop in June 2014, according to court documents. Smith, who had no criminal record, informed officers her car contained a pistol that was licensed in her home state, for which police promptly arrested her, seizing her gun and taking her to jail, where she stayed overnight. In another case, Gerard Cassignol, a Maryland resident, was driving home from his job in Northern Virginia when he got pulled over in the district. When police asked whether he had a gun in the vehicle, he said yes, giving police the combination to the locked safe where he kept it. He was ultimately jailed for 2 nights on the gun charges. The charges were dropped in both those cases and others after the ruling in Palmer. But for some the damage was done. Cassignol lost his job after his arrest. Another plaintiff had his top-secret security clearance placed under review. While D.C. argued at the time that the arrestees should have done their research about D.C. gun laws or attempt to license them before driving through, those actions would have been futile. There were no actions that the plaintiffs could have taken during the time period in question that would have allowed them to carry a gun for self-defense in the District of Columbia, Lamberth wrote in the 2021 ruling.
I want to get a comment in here real quick from Mike White, who has a great point. They have an unlimited war chest with our dollars. The state can prosecute you compared to what you can come up with. Even if you're Donald Trump, the state has more money.
I thought it was really interesting what the judge finally said. These individual citizens were prosecuted. It was not physically possible for the plaintiffs to obey the law. They didn't ask to conceal carry. There was a gun locked in the trunk of my car and a gun safe. And yet these individuals were prosecuted. Well, you didn't register it here. Well, can I register it here? No. The judge said, okay, that can't be lawful. Finally.
Yeah, let me get Coop says, never let the cops search anything. Again, we are not lawyers. We do not play them on TV or the internet. So this is not legal advice. And I don't think Coop's a lawyer. Matter of fact, I'm pretty darn sure he's not a lawyer. But if you have questions about that, contact your own lawyer in your jurisdiction. Dan, we haven't heard from you yet on this one. What's your thoughts here, bud?
Well, again, I have more questions than comments. I'm wondering, aren't we able to travel through any part of the country with a gun as long as we comply with that state's transport laws?
The Firearms Owners Protection Act supposedly says if you're legal where you start and you're legal where you stop and your gun is unloaded, locked with ammunition separate in an area not accessible to the driver of the vehicle, you're legal along the whole route.
Yeah, and every state is different. Well, every state is different. I could grab my book, but some states you have to have it locked in the glove box. Some states you can have it on you while you're driving. Some states you got to have it ammo separated and the gun in the trunk. Every state has different regulations and rules. So I'm not understanding why this lawsuit or why this arrest even happened if they were traveling.
Right, and so you have county laws, state laws, federal laws. And so the Federal Owners Protection Act is what I was just talking about. And so regardless of every state having different laws, you're supposed to be covered by the federal. The idea that he had it locked in a box, that right there, he's complying with the federal compliance. And this is where DC is not a state or a territory or anything else. So they should be covered by the Federal Protection Act. However, DC is its own little thing. So I'm wondering if that's how or why. The other part that I've warned all of my students about is cops do not know firearms laws. You as a firearm owner are responsible to understand and know what the firearm laws are, at least in your locale. If you're traveling, it's even more important. But that's kind of why it doesn't make sense they were arrested at all. Oh, well, at least the second guy who had it locked in a box. If it wasn't unloaded, then maybe that isn't going to be in compliance with the Federal Protection Act. So, but yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't think they should have been stopped.
I'm looking at my book right now for DC. Vehicle possession without recognized permit, handgun carry in vehicle prohibited except when in compliance. So what is compliance for DC?
Well, that's what they were saying, is the compliance is having that permit that allows you to have the gun in the District of Columbia. Because it's a district, not a state.
Well, and the magic, of course, is, okay, you bought a gun. I'm only going to take it at home. Well, I'll take it to my cabin and I travel through another state. Well, now you have to not only obey that state's laws, you might be maliciously prosecuted. And, okay, my friends, can you afford to defend yourself? Because you only have the rights that you can pay for and have a lawyer help you defend. Sorry. It's embarrassing to be a grown-up in this country, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, the first gun laws were all about control, and they were racist.
Right.
And now they're elitist.
Now they're elitist, okay.
Well,
I'll by that distinction.
It's here in Connecticut, 2-3 years ago, our governor wanted to make our permits cost $250 just for your permit. If that's not elitist, I don't know what is.
California has one-upped you. There are jurisdictions in California where it's $1,000 for the permit, not the training, not the gun, not anything else. It's $1,000 just for the permit.
Exactly. And like you just finished saying, Rob, you can have the rights that you can afford the lawyer for.
Yep.
Yeah, $5 million is like a drop in a bucket. I've looked at city budgets, and I'm just like, really? That's all they got for that? So I hope you're right that they're coming back for more.
All right, let's go ahead and get on to our next story. Another good news story. This one out of Tennessee, and the good news is nothing happened.
No gun control laws passed in TN special session. Governor Bill Lee's push after shooting at Christian school rejected. The Tennessee special session called by Governor Bill Lee, for the purpose of securing gun control, has ended with no gun control laws adopted by the state's legislature. Governor Lee called for the special session in the spring after the regular legislative session ended without passing any gun control laws. When the special session opened on August 21, 2023, Breitbart News noted that Lee and other gun control proponents were putting pressure on Republicans in the state legislature in hopes of securing a red flag law, among other controls. But the special session ended August 29, 2023, with no new gun controls adopted. 3 bills passed in the session, one of which gives a tax break to gun owners who buy a safe for storage and another that deals with human trafficking. The Tennessee Firearms Association noted that the third bill made a change to a pre-existing gun law, winnowing the window of time from 30 days to 72 hours that courts and court clerks are required to report certain information regarding individuals to the TBI for inclusion in the background check databases.
Rob, you're up first this time, man.
Well, this was Governor Lee's knee-jerk reaction when asked by reporters, well, how are you going to make us safe from crazy people with guns? Well, we'll hold a special session and pass. Yeah, wrong. Governor Lee left with egg on his face. I'm sorry that during the special session, legislators didn't maneuver so that the murderer's manifesto was made public.
Yeah, we know there was a manifesto. It was widely reported, and then absolutely nothing.
Suppressed.
Yes. And suppressed with the help of the press. I gotta say, I have never seen it, or I would have, even at risk of being arrested and prosecuted, I would have made it public. It's important for that stuff to happen. And I'm positive there are members of the press that have seen it but have just kept their mouths shut.
You know, I get so tired of hearing this, we just got to do something. You know, it's getting so ridiculous that gun control is basically built on irrational emotion. And I just wish that these people could look at this stuff rationally and understand that these gun laws do nothing to stop the bad guys. They only make good people more vulnerable. But with the media's influence and the political left, you get all this emotional crap, and even Republican, governors and Republican officials are starting to jump on that bandwagon. Well, we got to do something, because it'll look better for his campaign next time around. I'm just, I'm tired of it.
I heard through the grapevine it was actually one of his friends' kids got killed in that, and that's why he reacted so.
Yeah, regardless.
I have a poster. We can just put this up everywhere.
You just a second. Let me put your solo on screen. There we go.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
So this is it. It's like here in Connecticut we get beaten over the head with all the school shootings, pulse, all of that. It's like, oh, does anyone not realize they're gun-free zones, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, because they're always like, oh, how many children have to die before you do something? And I'm like, I've been studying this for over a decade. Laws don't do crap. And the thing that kills me the most is that we may not have this manifesto, but we have the Columbine shooting. We have lots of other ones that are out there. The DOJ, the Board of Ed, Department of Education, the FBI, they have these manifestos. They know what works. They've written millions of dollars worth of reports and studies on how do we prevent violence. Not one of them. There's a line somewhere that says, well, gun laws might work, but the majority of the body of work is about actual violence prevention. And it has nothing to do. Like here in Connecticut again, beat a dead horse, but we have, in America, we have roughly 250,000 violent crimes every single year. Out of that 250,000, we have roughly 10,000 deaths by firearms. 250,000, 10,000 deaths by firearms. Where is our problem? our problems in the violence. And yes, Dan, I wish they'd look at it rationally, because it's like if we address the problem, actual violence in our schools, in our society, it wouldn't, we could actually get rid of some of the gun laws, maybe. Because people would realize,
and
society, ha ha ha.
not only do gun-free zones do nothing, it's worse than that. They invite violence. It's a magnet for these people. And there have been killers, school killers, who have admitted that they went to the school, or they went to the store, or they went to wherever they did their heinous crime because it was gun-free. And you'd think that these politicians would know that, and I believe they do know that. I believe they understand. But in order to push for more gun regulations, those crime and those death and those murder rates can't go down. They need to stay where they are or continue going up for them to have that fuel to push for more gun restrictions. It's awful the way they use. And I often say they stand on the graves of dead children to push for gun control. And it's true because
they don't even stand on them; they're dancing on them.
Exactly right.
Well, okay, but the reason that sells is that certainly not the press, who should, shame on them, but our neighbors don't know that gun ownership is a virtue. They don't understand the millions of lives and crimes we save. And, you don't make a problem smaller by making a bigger one. Disarming the good guys has real costs that'll get people killed. Yeah, but they can't understand that yet.
All right, let me...
2.5 million defensive gun uses per year in America. And Rob, you turned me on to this, the Georgetown University study that was 1.67 million defensive gun uses per year. Why have we taken guns out of the schools? These seem to be the hot spots. Let's put if nothing else, security guards. Come on.
Well, I've got to get Brooke out of here in just a little bit, because she's got...
all my fault.
Yeah, she's got a show that has to start at the top of the hour, so I'm going to let her out early. I want to get to one more story before we let her go, and that's our final story for today. I'll come back and pick up the other one when Brooke is gone, but I want to get to this one first.
Biden's proposed rule will eliminate private gun sales. President Joe Biden and the Department of Justice announced a proposed rule to change who will need a federal firearms license, FFL, to sell firearms. The long-awaited rule was hailed by anti-gun groups like Everytown for Gun Safety, Giffords, and Brady United as a way of closing the gun show loophole and the internet loophole. Anti-gun organizations claim this is a step towards universal background checks, a centerpiece of the Biden administration's anti-gun policy. The proposed rule is powered by the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, BSCA, which was a law championed by Chris Murphy, DCT, and John Cornyn, Republican, Texas. The BSCA changed the law's wording to describe who the federal government considers a gun dealer. The bill altered the language of Section 921A of Title 18, United States Code. The BSCA changed the definition of someone engaged in the business of selling guns from with the principal objective of livelihood and profit to the ambiguous statement of to predominantly earn a profit. Now, the Biden administration is exploiting that change through the upcoming rule. At the time, some Republicans who backed the law blew off the concerns that an anti-gun administration would exploit the language. The change read, 22. The term to predominantly earn a profit means that the intent underlying the sale or disposition of firearms is predominantly one of obtaining pecuniary gain, as opposed to other intents, such as improving or liquidating a personal firearms collection, provided that proof of profit shall not be required as to a person who engages in the regular and repetitive purchase and disposition of firearms for criminal purposes or terrorism.
I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. This is what they're attempting to do here. My opinion is, if you sell a gun and you sell it for 10 cents more than you bought it for, you better have gone to the government and said, "Mother, may I," first.
Yeah, this is so This is so crazy. I got these. You see these guns in back of me? How much do you think they sold in the early to mid 1800s? How much were they? $10 maybe? I don't know. How much did they cost back then? So that means if I sell them for what they're worth today, that's a crime?
Yeah, if you do not have an FFL, that's what they want, yes.
Yeah, I love that wording. They were very tricky with that earn a profit. Yeah, because I have handguns that have gone up in price just in the last 5 years. I have guns that I could get more on trade than I actually paid for them when I originally bought them. This is a trap.
This is absolutely a trap. Rob, what's your thoughts here, man?
No, this trap was handed to us by rhinos, John Cornyn et al.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have more to say. That's it. Yeah. What's that classic meme? And it's out of the Star Wars series. It's like there was a compromise. Cool. Tell me what you got. You did get something when you sold this out, did you? You got something? No, you just sold this out.
Not so much. Pete G Webs has on his YouTube channel has a great analogy of the cake. Well, compromise. Well, we compromised for the 1934 Gun Control Act. They took half our cake. We still had half the cake. And then we had the 1964 Gun Control Act, and there's some compromise there. Now we got a quarter of the cake. Go look up gun websites. Go look up his YouTube channel. It's very prominently displayed. And if you have to have Brooke send you the link, she's got it. So
I use it in all of my classes because as a new gun owner, it does a great job of explaining the Second Amendment. Because those of us who know and understand why the Second Amendment is so important, we get it. But it took me almost 10 years to kind of understand why it's important. I actually had a student in here yesterday who was talking to me, or actually this morning, and he was like, oh yeah, I hear we're not going to be able to transfer guns anymore. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because I hadn't looked at the show notes yet. So now I guess I know what he was talking about. but yeah, it's amazing. Again, I'm a broken record, but I tell my students, I'm like, we are responsible gun owners. The way they've created the gun laws, especially here, they're too complex for us to be law-abiding gun owners because we can't understand them. So if we can't understand them, we can't comply to them. And they specifically make them confusing. Or, like Sandy Hook time, they just refused to talk to anyone who knew anything about firearms. So the laws they wrote here in Connecticut legitimately don't actually make sense because they made it without ever talking to someone who knew anything about guns. So it's impossible to comply. So this is, back to Di Muller's, I shall not comply. I'm like, we don't have a choice in the matter. We can't figure out how to comply.
And to you, going into the specific language of the regulation here, the term to predominantly earn a profit means that the intent underlying the sale or disposition of firearms is predominantly one of obtaining a pecuniary gain. Without a dictionary, how many in the audience right now can come up with a definition of pecuniary? Yeah.
It's slightly peculiar. That's my guess.
Yes.
It's slightly peculiar. That's
Yeah,
all I got. Dan's a writer. Dan should know.
I don't know. I'm looking it up.
Relating to or consisting of money.
Ah.
Yeah.
But then that's like saying, never mind. This is the whole point, is even when people are trying to be law-abiding, the gobbledygook that they've created for how the laws are written, laws initially had a plan. They were supposed to be simple and easy to follow. Yeah, none of that. Not at all.
Well, we've got to let Brooke go. She is getting ready to do Suicide Prevention Saturdays, her broadcast. I'm going to do my very best to get us out of here so I can watch the whole thing this Saturday.
Okay. Well, tonight we're going to talk about my favorite, happiest moment of my life. So it's going to be good. Because I'm going to also make you guys think about your favorite, happiest moment of your life.
Very
So
cool.
you should come watch.
Do me a favor. As soon as I switch over to the 3-shot and you're free, send me the link, and I'll make sure the link goes up in comments so everybody can go over there as soon as we go dark here.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
All right, you're gonna kick me out, right?
Yeah.
I just closed.
I'll be putting a 3-shot up here in just a second. But Brooke, thank you,
Bye,
and we'll be talking to you again soon. All right.
sounds good.
Rob, and I got the wrong. Whoops, I got to change because I've got now Dan's face, but Brooks' name under there. So I got to change that, and I got to find out where it is here. Here it is, and
Do you want to do that while you run? The
yeah,
last
let
story?
me hit this. Let me hit this last story here, and then we'll talk about it.
21 end up gun law to remain blocked as federal lawsuit plays out. Colorado's new law blocking all gun sales to anyone under age 21 remains on hold while a legal challenge continues to play out in court. Rocky Mountain Gun Owners argues the law is a Second Amendment violation and is challenging its constitutionality in federal court. A judge already blocked the gun buying restrictions from going into effect in August while the court case plays out. Governor Jared Polis asked the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals to block that ruling, but the court declined. Today, 2 Obama-appointed judges agreed with us that our plaintiffs do have standing and that our likelihood of success on the merits is strong, Taylor Rhodes, executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, said in part in a statement. For now, the law will remain blocked until the case is heard in court. Coloradans under 21 could still buy rifles. While federal law requires buyers to be at least 21 years old to buy a handgun, Coloradans under age 21 can still buy rifles. If upheld, Senate Bill 23-169 would block all gun sales to anyone in Colorado under age 21.
This is a law in search of a problem. They seem to think that people between 18 and 21 are all of the mass shooters. They're not. They're not even close to it. And even if they were, mass shootings are such a tiny problem in our country that could so easily be solved by allowing us to defend ourselves no matter where we're at. If we were allowed to carry anywhere we're allowed to be, then mass shootings would disappear almost overnight. Rob, I'm gonna throw to you first on this one, man. What do you think?
I think this law won't stand the Bruin test. Not only should 19-year-olds, for example, be able to buy a rifle, they should be able to buy a handgun. Often they can be gifted a firearm. They can't go to the store and buy one if their parents won't give them one. Let me point out and amplify what Paul said. This is a law passed when politicians needed recognition after a public outrage like a mass murder. We could eliminate mass murders in every school in the U.S. by removing, as a federal law, the so-called Safe Gun-Free School Zones Act. We drew a target on our school children by telling mass murderers that our children were undefended. Stop that. And if we do, that problem will go away. You're right, Paul.
All right, Dan, what's your thoughts, man?
Well, I totally agree with Rob, but I take a different angle on this. During our Revolutionary War, young men as young as 16 years old, if not even younger than that, were carrying guns and fighting for our freedom. I believe that these gun-grabbing states are trying to eliminate militia-age people from having access to firearms. It seems pretty consistent, and I think they're using the school killings as fuel to do that, but I think they're pretty desperate to try and eliminate militia activity. There was that guy, what was that, Paul, where was that, where the guy who had a training facility was getting arrested because of building permits and stuff like that. They accused
That was
him of
New Hampshire, yeah.
New Hampshire or Vermont. I think it was it Vermont? No, maybe it was New Hampshire. I don't know, one of those New England states. And they immediately passed a law that training that could be used for militia activity was banned, and that was now illegal. I believe that they are getting desperate and they are worried about militias, and they're worried about militia activity because it's all these states that are violating our constitutional rights to no end. It would be no surprise to me that militias would start popping up to defend our freedom. So I think that's part of this.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Let me add one more dimension to that, and that is this, and is that if you eliminate access to firearms until well into adulthood, the chance of somebody developing an interest in firearms drops dramatically.
Absolutely. That's another one. Yep. You're absolutely right, Paul. And I've talked about that before, too. It's if you can tax ammo to the point where parents don't take their kids to the range anymore, and range is shut down, parents don't train their kids, the next generation will grow up as non-gun owners and even anti-gunners. And now you've just disarmed a generation without even going door to door.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Let's see here. I'm going to get this one up. And the only reason why the age 18 to 21 is because of the Parkland shooting in Florida. I'm not going to name the person. Oh, by the way, he used 10-round mags during the crime he committed, and the FBI had multiple alerts on him. That is all true. And he used 10-round mags. Why? Because they were more concealable, not because they were more effective. Because you could conceal more preloaded ammunition or pre-staged mags in a backpack if they were 10-rounders compared to 30-rounders, so he could have more ammunition on him when he carried out his heinous attack. So they need to mandate 30-round mags then, because this killer used 10-round mags. Therefore, 10-round mags must be evil. They need mandatory. If you're going to have a firearm, it's got to have a 30-round mag. I mean...
Right. Absolutely.
I always considered it as long shooting in 1911 that gun owners or the legislators didn't like 9mm and they wanted people to get shot with bigger bullets. I can't argue with that thinking. It works for me. Or it did at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Warsaw Patriot, yeah, he says, Paul, mind if I email you after this? Yes, absolutely, that's fine. Do go over, and I haven't gotten word from Brooke yet for the link for her broadcast coming up, so just search for Great Start Shooting School. It is time to start plugging stuff. Dan, I'm going to start with you, man. And I'm going to start by plugging before we do. I'm going to plug right here, Good Gun, Bad Guy. I've got both book 3 and 2 here. 3 doesn't show up so well because it's in green, and so is my green screen, but 2 shows up pretty well. Plug your book series, Dan, and your radio show, bud.
Well, thank you, Paul. Yeah, this is the book series. I don't know if you can see this. Good Gun, Bad Guy. 3-book series, talks about the anti-gunners and how we can... It's basically the rule book that they didn't want you to see. So I talk about all the strategies and tactics that the anti-gun crowd uses to change the way we think about guns in America. It's a lot of statistics in there, a lot of good stuff in the book series. Been always get good reviews, and everybody seems to love the series. So Ted Nugent, as a matter of fact, endorsed book number 2, and I was very proud of that. GoodGunBadGuy.com. You can go to GoodGunBadGuy.com to get one or all of the books. Also, my web show is called The Loaded Mic, and you can find that at loadedmic.com, M-I-C like microphone, loadedmic.com. We talk about a lot of Second Amendment stuff, but we also get into news and topics of the day. Lots of funny little segments to the show. Total blast, loadedmic.com. We're on OpsLens, we're on Right America Media, and a bunch of other networks. So goodgunbadguy.com and loadedmic.com. And thanks for having me, Paul.
Absolutely. Rob, self-defense gun stories and slow facts and anything else you want to plug today, man?
No, I think you've got most of it. Yeah, sometimes my writing's picked up at Clash Daily and at OpsLens.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes my job a little bit more difficult because I've got more time to fill. That is going to do it for us.
I can talk about the most recent article I wrote.
Sure, do it.
It's called How Big Are Our Virtues? And this is as serious as it gets. Look, it's scandalous. Millions of us were put at risk by bad government policy. Just think back to COVID. Likewise, it's really important to recognize when we're doing something right and we need to keep doing it and do more of it, like saving thousands of lives every day. That's hard to understand because the problem is political, but some of it is simply the size of our virtue. How can we begin to understand that millions of us prevented serious injury and saved a huge number of lives every year? How big are our virtues? At slowfacts.wordpress.com.
Very cool. On my end, that does wrap up this broadcast week for the Bullet and Polite Society. Do please come join us Monday night, again 7 p.m. Central Time, for another edition of the Polite Society podcast. We will be live on Labor Day. There is no guest scheduled as of this moment for Monday night, but we will be live. We'll bring you the news of, well, the day, because we've covered the news of the week today. There's more news that we could get to if we don't have any Monday news. I think I had 5 or 6 stories that did not make the cut for tonight. So we got a lot more we can talk about. Come join us Monday night. Until then, everybody, thank you for watching. Podcast listeners, thank you for listening. And we will see you